It's been a big question. I imagine that might be a question on everybody's mind. Like where is all this going? And it's also been quite a ride. I was just talking to Anne about how even the last 5 years have been so fast, just because of first COVID and then massive move away from the office and into digital spaces and all the changes that that brought with it, and then this big push to make what's really a legacy technology, which is your AI and your deep neural networks into something that's hugely broad and used, right? Well used. So seeing this happen has been quite interesting. And as you all probably know, the methods of use, the gains that people have from these tools, those things are changing rapidly, the way we do this. So that's all to just say that I've been working at consulting jobs with my company or my two companies, and also as an instructor um, in larger companies and at UC Berkeley. So I've got a broad view of how people are using AI, many talented individuals that I get to experience, and what things are working and what things are not working, right? So I think that's a big question. So I don't want to flat my jaw too much. I just wanted to give you that background before we sort of jump in. I do encourage everybody to chat in the webinar chat. If you have questions, a lot of these slides are sort of provocations and stubs really for longer conversations. I love to interact because I like to address what's the concern in the room. So if you do have questions, put it in there. Don't worry about distracting me. If it becomes distracting, I'll just move on. So yeah, you can even do a stream of thought if you were that type of person who wants to just participate. But yeah, I do love that. Okay, without further ado, let me just make sure this will move. Okay, so here's our overview. Um, the first thing, unlocking Gen AI's potential. So the point of this agenda point is like, what is Gen AI? What has it been, and what is it turning into? Just sort of an overview of that. What's the potential? How can it be used? How should it be used? At least from our view today, right? Like again, there are a lot of surprises that keep on coming up. Um, and I want to sort of just take a minute to think about that. Then that's sort of speculative in a way, maybe historical slash speculative. The second part of this is case studies. And there's 4 case studies. We've got websites that back those up. The links are in the end. And yes, again, you will have access to the material. Again, I think that going through this material, you can really start thinking about all these ideas and have much longer thoughts about them. Anyway, healthcare, finance, media, and productivity. These are areas that we see large strides in AI and a lot of uptake. So that's the reason to bring them. And each one of those brings a different aspect of how people are employing Gen AI. Then the integration strategies. So we'll take it from the broad view of how people are employing it to integration strategies and talk about that. We'll also talk about PwC, Price Waterhouse Cooper, and how they actually are deploying their $1 billion effort to bring Gen AI into their consulting and finance business. It's pretty cool because they do have 5 points, which I think are very salient and important points about what I've seen that works. It really resonates their list, so I'll talk about that. And then we have a much more sort of semi-technical walkthrough of the parts and pieces. What do you need to think about? What types of strategies would you use? Are there pluses and minuses? All of these types of things. So it's really a grab bag of all the things I think are important for an executive or even a tech person who's thinking more broadly than just their domain about how to make a transition successful, or many transitions. And then there's time for live Q&A. Again, I love to hear what you guys think, so either put it in chat as we talk. I know this is slated at 90 minutes, so if you have like a lunch break, and you want to talk to me, just get your stuff in before, and I'll try and address those questions. All right. Um, so what is generative AI? It was really hard for me not to. I did a whole piece on this and put it on YouTube about what is generative AI. It was hard for me not to throw that deck into this deck. I think it would have been fun, but we need to move on from this. So let's take a look at that. AI systems that create new content. So that's really a good definition of Gen AI. What is Gen AI? Text images, audio code, that's not specifically and explicitly programmed. This is kind of an important and interesting point. If it's not programmed, how do you get content out? Um, well, the system's learned. And I think, I know Elon Musk and one of his senior programmers said that they were going to pivot from hard coding their driving algorithms to Gen AI, and it was no longer code, right? So I think that this is an important point to recognize that there is code underneath, but the code is in the form of these probabilistic matrix that are learned from large batches of question answer or large batches of image generation. So it's code, but it's not the type of code that we can plan. It's not the type of code that we can really probe. It's very different. It's more of a set of tendencies that's learned from whatever you feed the AI. Um, so learns patterns from existing data to generate novel outputs. So again, we get into another big question with that statement. Obviously, it's learning from data that may be proprietary, but the outputs are synthetic. So it means that it's taking everything that it sucked in and making stuff that would likely be something else that would come out of the world. Very interesting to think about. Um, so examples of these are ChatGPT. Everybody knows this. This is a company that dumped a whole bunch of money and made LLMs into something that people wanted to use and could use. DALL-E is coming from the same company. Claude is a close competitor. Um, and then GitHub Copilot, which is actually running alongside ChatGPT. I'm pretty sure they were working. I don't know if it was before, but it's a parallel process where they're able to use prompts to make some stunning code, not just suggestions. So I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, any questions on like what is Gen AI? Anybody, again, if you have questions, I'm gonna pause just a little bit, but if you have them, just don't be shy, throw them in chat. All right. Um, so we can contrast modern Gen AI with traditional Gen AI. Traditional Gen AI is different in that it was focusing more on classification, prediction, optimization. We did have generative like GANs and stuff. These are generative. Um, just if you want to ask a question, I see it. It says, "How can I ask?" Just ask it. There you go. You're already doing it, so that's cool. All right, so we did have generative tools, but they weren't as good as what we have now. Um, so we have a question about how to implement it ourselves. Okay, so there's a lot of levels to that. I'll show you some of the key pathways. Um, Yeah, and we have a couple of slides. Like we're not a tech. This isn't going to be a technical talk. It's more of a strategic talk. But there are slides that will point you in the direction of all the tools that you can use. And I'm going to outline in broad strokes what exactly you can do to get going. I think if you really want to know, now there are different ways to dive into Gen AI, but if you really want to know how to do it or how to build these tools, it's much more of a technical course. I'm going to recommend sort of bite-sized pieces, which anybody can do, right? Use your Gen A. You can see results from tools that would be, I guess, middleware. We'll call them middleware later, or tools that are commoditized like ChatGPT. Um, and that really just depends on you getting used to the tool and using it. So yeah, we'll do that in a sec, or towards the end of the talk. Okay. good. Yeah, please keep on throwing it in. I'll try to keep my track, and then we'll weave in some context as we go. Okay, so traditional AI is not so much on generation, but it's more on like classification. So you put something in, you get something out. Like a typical case was where we learned how to do OCR with these systems, basically using handwritten numbers called MNIST. There's a set of handwritten numbers, and we were able to train a deep learning system that could tell you, the numbers 1 through 10. Seems quite modest compared to what we have today, but that was sort of the type of thing that we were doing with traditional AI, um, traditional deep learning AI. And then generative AI came along, and it's able to do a lot more, just because these things have gotten bigger and so much better, and those the same tools can just do a lot more. Those models could always generate things, but they just weren't as good. Um, yes. And then if you are interested in technical course links and next steps, I think Anne would be really good at getting you to those references. Um, okay. And then the key difference, traditional AI answers questions, Gen AI creates solutions. And again, I want to emphasize, because it's going to become important in the future. Um, LLMs, I mean, they do have transformers. This is an innovation, but there's a whole family of these types of deep learning tools, and they're all, have a lot of promise. So I think that that's important. It's not really that there's new AI and old AI. Um, it's just that one of them got really good. Okay. Yes, and we'll share the recording and the slides as well. Um, and okay, so the paradigm shift. So uh, I said that it's the same old stuff, but there is a fundamental paradigm shift, which is the capability paradigm shift. Things have changed incredibly. And it's not a normal paradigm shift where, you have your digital transformation. Maybe if you work really hard, you can get 20% gains on a specific process. Maybe your books are faster, something like this. It's really truly a broad shift. And I'll talk about what that means. But the paradigm is going from rule-based to emergent systems that adapt and learn, rather than follow fixed rules. So the old rule-based systems were, maybe we could put an expert in a box, maybe we could figure out everything that a doctor would need to know, write down all the rules, and then we would be able to ask that box, what's this person sick of? Those didn't work that well, and it turns out that by dumping a lot of information in, these things resemble us a lot more, which is kind of scary, and it makes some really interesting interesting evenings to start thinking about this. But they really do, um, they're really able to adapt, learn, talk. Some people are using these things as like psychiatrists or whatnot, and I'm sure we're all familiar with this now. From narrow task to general purpose, so we're moving from the very specific AI, which I think these things are great at, to more general AI, and it really, again, it seems like this is actually happening. Um, and then from tools to copilots. So with copilots, this word here, I think it's kind of a little funny word, but I think this is essentially, if you open up your VS Code, or you open up your, Google, you may have a copilot, which is a chat window. It's a chat bot that can have various levels of interaction with your tasks, your work tasks. This is how most people are engaging. Um, so it's a collaborative partner rather than just a tool. Okay. Now, the level with which you engage with these co-pilots really determines at this point how much you get done. And people are saying, I think the measures that'll come up with our use cases are, 50% increase in productivity, 20% increase in accuracy. I'd say that you can't really quantify things in the old ways like that. Those might be fine and good, but I think what's really happening is different. So there's your paradigm shift. It's not something that we've done before. Okay. Here's great. I see we have some links coming in there. Um, so if you say, what can Gen AI do? I can ask, what can Gen AI do? And I get this list. It can generate text. It can generate image and video synthesis. I can hear you guys going to sleep right now. Code writing, it's data summarization and chat interfaces. Okay. So yes, these are all true, but we've all heard this stuff, and maybe that's nice, but how do I make it work? Well, I would say that this is really what's happening. So when I say text generation, I don't mean that I ask it a question and like a search engine, it gives me an answer. It can do that. But if you can, there's a tool called Cursor, which I think is actually the next generation. There's a plug for Cursor of the next generation of these tools. And the thing that Cursor does that's really unique is it allows you to stay in context and work with multiple documents. So, for example, I could make a repo, which is, for anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's a set of folders, right? A project, whatever you call it. And I could put in all of my base research. I could put in all my outlines and notes, and nicely organized in folders. And of course that the goal is to make a report, make a proposal, send a proposal to NIH or NSF, whatnot, right? Those are the big goals, right? Now, when you use something like Cursor, you can just basically write a document based on your outline and then take your reference and say, well, you ignored this reference, put it in in the box, and it reads the document and folds it into your outline and folds it in. Well, maybe there's a section you don't like, you highlight that section and you say, I don't like this. It doesn't sound like a human wrote it. And then it's going to write it more like a human. So I don't know if you guys are getting what I'm talking about, but I'm talking about a large task, a large daunting task that would take a lot of thought and moving things around. Now it's all in one box and you can interact with it, and it could even start doing it for you. So the speed with which you can do this, and I'm not only going to say speed, I'm going to say, and I'll demonstrate that with something I did for the slide deck, the capacity with what you can actually get done, because our attention span is limited, is enhanced. So I would say this is like a human in the box, cybernetic or cyborg bolt on. That's kind of how I like to think about it. Cyborg meaning like part human, part machine, is getting closer to that. Um, all right, so image and video synthesis. Okay, so you can synthesize videos and images. It's a nice trick, right? No, this is actually headless content. Now, I challenge you to find the headless content on YouTube. A lot of it is actually clearly generated by AI. Anything that has that's a 40-minute video on, I don't know, Riddick Bowe, right? And it has no actual humans, just all reels and a cool accent, right? In the narrator, it's probably headless content video generated automatically from an outline. So that's the type of thing. You could all of a sudden become an influencer or a content producer if you just understand how to use the tool. Code writing, code-based generation. So I would say code writing, yes. So this started out as I'm writing my code in VS Code, and it starts saying, oh well, maybe you meant to put a comma there, maybe you're missing a bracket. And I'd say, okay, well, I don't know how to use this function, let me look up how to use the function, and it would pull the docs for me. No, this is different. I can say, write me a code base that will suck in my financial documents from this folder, check my email, and then parse every document, give me a spreadsheet with all of the transactions, tell me who owes what, and then make a list for me, put it on a website, and it'll do it, right? So this is now I program every day, but to do that would take months, and I would probably lose interest or energy. But now I can do it, in weeks. And I'm not going to say that this is easy, um, but it's a paradigm shift where my capabilities are vastly expanded because I'm learning how to use AI productively. So that's that's the stick. That's the spiel, right? That's the spiel that this is different. Okay. And then data summarization and chat interfaces. I can go on about this stuff, data summarization and parsing. Um, writing parsing code is difficult. Sometimes you just go in there and remove all those parentheses by hand. Well, now you don't have to do that kind of stuff, right? You can actually just say, ChatGPT, remove all these parentheses on this 14,000 page document, right? Or whatever, 14,000 rows. Okay. Um, so there's that. And these things, it's interesting because they're actually not that revolutionary, but they're totally revolutionary. So this is what I like to think about. All right, so why does it matter? Okay, so we'll just take a step back. Is there any questions about what I just said? I just said a lot, so yeah, that's fine. I love that. I love excitement. So what are the tools that we need to do? Oh wow. Okay. Well, um, fantastic. So, Sunwint, there's a what I would say you're probably familiar with VS Code. Um, and there's something called Cursor AI. You probably heard of it. I'm sure your friends talk about it. Everybody's talking about it. Um, I'm sure, and VS Code is actually following along quite. Cursor AI seems to be using open source, like an older version of VS Code. So if you're familiar with VS Code, it's a very, very convenient notebooking and everything else system, sort of what we call an IDE, integrated developer environment. It's an environment for development. Well, what Cursor AI does is it's able to pull in multiple chatbots. So again, not a big technical leap, but an incredible procedural leap. And it's also able to, do all the other things like you can pull in your code in a repo, you can modify your code, you can have it. There's just all sorts of stuff. You can build agents that'll do code curation in the background. You can have it run terminal. So essentially it takes all that dispersed attention and puts it in the space, just like VS Code did when it came around. Um, um, I call it VS Code. I might even be misspeaking. From Microsoft first. This feature comes with built in with VS Code. I just use VS Code. Let's see, Visual Studio Code. Yeah, that's why I call it VS Code. Um, yeah, that's what I use, and it's a standalone. I don't want any Microsoft on my machine if I can help it. Sorry, Microsoft. I shouldn't say those things, but sometimes there's some there's some yeah, authentication stuff. Um, okay, so yeah, so you don't really need to install anything except Cursor AI for Cursor. And like I say, Visual Studio Code is doing, I think they're just watching and or integrating. So this is where it's going. Yeah. Um, okay, so yeah, thanks, Tate. Yeah, but I mean, I have a lot of friends at Microsoft. I don't want to make them enemies. And I mean, there's like again, there's some really nice things that come out of that shop. Um, anyway, so Gen AI significance. Why Gen AI matters, adaptive, scalable automation, democratizes creation. And again, we could go on about these things embedded in tools like MS Office and Salesforce. If you are, even if you are a coder, I think the embedded tools is really the way that you're going to get traction fast. I mean, you can build a code base for sure, and that would be, using one of these coding tools, but like even with this slide deck, if I've got Gemini in the background and I don't have an image for a slide, you can tell I didn't do a lot of this for this one. But I can generate a nice synthetic image with a button push, right? So that would be faster than just going to ChatGPT and making a new image. Okay. So Gen AI is a system design shift, moves from tools to copilots to agents. So if you're not familiar with these things Copilot's more of a chat box, and it does suggestions and stuff. But an agent would be even more autonomous. You give it the ability to check the weather and make a weather prediction, and it would be running in the background. That might be a weather predicting agent. So that's a way of boxing the functionality and giving capacity to an LLM or multiple LLMs strung together. Um, so example from micro-based automation to natural language workflows. So that would be, yeah, moving to something that's much more usable and abstract, meaning you're moving away from the code. Um, okay. So barriers to adoption. So there's a lot of barriers, right? Now I'm going to talk about this. If you're a manager, these things are real problems. There's some trust issues. There are issues, as we all know, that where chatbots start doing stuff that maybe we don't like. And there are issues like that. Maybe People get lazy with these things, and just trust the bot. That's not great. So hallucination and trust. They're super good at saying things that sound right when they don't know the truth. Like, so I would say that it's sort of like a con man. Like they're very good at, giving you facts, easily verifiable facts, right? So you could check a lot of what a chatbot would say or what an AI would produce. It'll be right there. It'll be obvious. But then when it's hard to find something, it's not obvious that sometimes it'll produce stuff that's synthetic, right? That could be true. And it's all mixed up. So there's that hallucination issue, and it's not a small issue. Integration with current systems. So I would say hallucination is also representation. It's hallucination and representing stuff as the truth. Um, doesn't seem like they've gotten to the point where they can actually. Uh, you can usually tell it to give me a reference, but it doesn't always, and sometimes they'll give you a synthetic reference. So I don't think we've gotten to the point where we've dealt with this properly. Integration with current systems. Again, this is coming along fast and furious. But yes, if you have your custom job, especially your custom LLM, it's going to be hard to integrate with your system. Um, data privacy and governance. I was worried a lot about data privacy and governance. I've sort of given that up just because in order to compete with people who are using AI tools, I can't think about that too much anymore. I mean, I've got my own AI server, but it's not as fast, and it doesn't get modified as fast as OpenAI. It doesn't work as fast as any of these tools that are being, money being poured into. So the issue with data privacy and governance is if you have all these tools say that there's a button you can press, they're not going to save your data, they're not going to train on your data, but how do you know, right? How do you know? There's the Samsung case where code was put into one of these chatbots, I forget which one, but then it was given to a competitor as a suggestion. So that kind of thing does happen even when, it's not supposed to. And then there's user training. And this is big too. Like, what do you train people on? What kind of path do they take to actually get value? How do they not get lost? How do they not make mistakes? Who do you train? Right? Make a joke, sometimes it seems like the world was going in one direction where let's fire all the PhDs and hire elementary school children to do their job with AI and enhanced. That's really cynical and probably pretty mean. But I just want to make the point that there was that idea that maybe we could train everybody up, and just do an expert's job, right? We don't need experts anymore. So the user training thing is really interesting. I don't think I never thought that was really what was going to happen. And it looks like your skilled users are doing far more than, your unskilled users. But there is the democratization aspect to this where, somebody who couldn't code before, now they can code. So, and then they can learn, right? Probably learn very fast. So there's all of that. Um, Okay, current and future uses. So this is sort of, we're going to get into like use cases now, just because I'm talking a lot about potential, like what are people doing? What are people making work? What can you copy, right? Essentially. And then like, what's the future? And as much as we can tell the future in this fast moving train. So today, ad copy is huge. A lot of your blogs, a lot of your headless videos are all just synthetic. um, some marketing, right? Email variants, right? Very easy to now, like you could actually have this get into your email, mutate the emails, respond to emails, put some level of temperature into those variants so that you can, what I mean by that is you turn up the temperature, you get more random stuff. So maybe you make it more human-like. So there's that. Finance, forecasting, scenario modeling. So there's a lot of financial uses, especially when you get into like personal finance. You can have a bot that's helping you optimize your finances. That's something. Taxes, right? Legal, drafting, and redlining. We've done paralegal work where hundreds of thousands of lines of billing items were drafted by AI. We were able to do that um, in our group, so that saves a lot of time. Um, and when when you have a job where deadlines are not met, um, I'll get to that in a minute. But as things have gotten faster, it's actually a rescue that we're able to enhance with AI because things aren't getting done in this digital world. Um, and then HR, so job description generation, resume screening. And I'll say that this doesn't only help companies. I know that there are other entities that are producing resumes and doing research on the job market by producing synthetic resumes and submitting synthetic jobs, synthetic job applications, right? So there's what do you call that? Red cream or chicken and egg going on there. Okay, so that's today. Now, what's the future, right? End-to-end agents, multimodal decision support, voice and video content generation. I'd say this is already happening. A lot of this is already happening. Autonomous system orchestration. Actually, this is kind of scary too, right? I'm actually trained as an evolutionary biologist, and there's not a lot to evolution except the ability to mutate and record those, like to mutate and produce things that look like you, right? That's sort of what it is. And then there has to be a limited resource that you can master more of and make more of yourself. So when we start building autonomous systems that can orchestrate their own production and design, that's interesting. Similarly, agents, we're giving more and more autonomy to these things. Again, like I said, the agent is something that goes off and does your job. If you get good at using cursor AI, you could basically you could build 10 agents and give it your code base and say, okay, find all vulnerabilities and suggest a patch. Go. 3 hours later, you've got a report, right? Because that agent has the ability to do that and the directive. You could say, okay, well, enhance every part of this web page in terms of design, right? So and then put it on that code base, and you could do that with a stack of agents. So yeah, multimodal decision support. Obviously the obvious case um, is like is finance, right? Um, so maybe you want to, if you're a trader, you want to look at the weather, you want to watch the news, that classic movie where you've got all things, 1,000 screens, or I don't know, 40 screens, and you're trying to synthesize it all. Well, we have the ability to do that now with enough compute and some architecture. Okay, so that's where we're going. And voice and video content generation, again, that's happening already. I imagine it's going to get better. Um, okay. Okay, so questions about that. Cool. All right, so case studies. How is AI currently being used? So these are the real world examples. Um, they all offer some measurable business impact in terms of deliverables or percent savings like this. So very kind of orthodox. Um, we discussed something about their implementation strategies and then the key learnings and outcomes. And from there, we'll talk about our study case. Okay, so the first case is healthcare. Um, my wife's a doctor, so I've seen this happen in real time. So you can see this nuance DAX, or this they're calling it Dragon Copilot now. Um, Gen AI systems analyze patient data, medical literature, clinical guidelines to provide real-time diagnostics, suggestions, treatment recommendations. So that's the decision support. And then there's the documentation, um, automated generation of clinical notes, discharge summaries, and patient instructions, reducing administrative burden by 30 to 40%. And for healthcare providers, time saved 50%. I would say that this is really underselling the case. Now, this has been a hard transition. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Epic. Epic it has a campus. It's like in a football stadium, because they're so huge, and that was part of the digital documentation push years and years ago. This is, I don't know, 20 years ago or whatnot. But it was a big transition for doctors to go from paper notes um, to electronic medical records, right? and some of them, found it very hard, and I think all of them, need assistance in getting stuff moving faster, because we all know that there's not enough doctors. It's hard to get appointments. So I think that that's the big thing, is the automation is allowing people to do more. Again, it's the same message. We can take a look at this site. Let me just start clicking in so that we can. So this is a bit of an advertising site, but you can really see what they're producing here. Enhances qualities of patient experiences, increases operational efficiency, and improves financial impact. So there's modeling on the back end in terms of codes, which codes to send out, in terms of patient care. And again, like all things, this transition has good and bad sides, but it does increase, probably increase accuracy, and also increase efficiency and capacity. Um, so that's where this is going, and you can see all these different use cases that would be aided. Coaching doctors about how to write clinical notes. Again, a bit of a hard sell, right? But that's actually happening. Generating referral level letters, summarizing encounters. So again, this is important. Customizable documentation. Anyway, you can click in and look at this. Okay. And then finance. So we've got this PwC. They have Finance Copilot. And again, we'll dig more deeply into them, because they've made a massive effort at AI transformation, and have a lot of learnings. So again, Gen AI analyzes vast data sets to identify patterns and anomalies in financial transactions. So this use case over here, identifying anomalies, that cuts across, right? So we want to have our fraud detectors. Um, if you want to talk about savings in healthcare, there are a number of companies that have been working for years in data science, trying to detect fraudulent interactions, in like fraudulent billing and stuff, and those have been in progress. Reducing fraud detection time by 60% and improving accuracy by 35%. You might have gotten your bank notifications. Sometimes, somebody did something that would be impossible for you to do, like got gas, 40 miles away from where you just got gas. You might have an automatic fraud notification popping up from some AI agent. Okay, so risk assessment and fraud. And then the obvious case, algorithmic trading. Um, so, those trading boxes also have been around for a long time. Um, see, advanced models that adapt market conditions in real time, generating trading strategies that outperform traditional algorithms by 12 to 18% in volatile markets. So 12 to 18% would be huge in terms of financial markets. Again, this is old craft. People have been doing automated trading boxes for years, but the new models are just so much better. Um, and then automated reporting, generation of regulatory compliance documents and financial statements, reducing preparation time by 70% while maintaining 99.8% accuracy. So this, I would say, is the elephant in the room. Um, the fact that and this is where I'm going to suggest, if you're a manager, I'm going to suggest that you make the biggest push, because this is what I see as the thing that really is under implemented and high impact, right? So we'll talk about assessing opportunities in a minute, but the fact is that these models can read, and they can suggest things that are real, right? Or that would be very likely. It was really hard to do natural language processing before these models came along. And now you actually don't have to code it. They just do it better than the algorithms that we spent a lot of time writing. Um, and that, coupled with the fact that, report generation, documentation generation is just such a huge time sink. Um, the fact that these things can do it in minutes, um, is really stunning. So that's really where I want to hang for a minute. Um, ah, how do you set up your own server? So, I don't know. And can I ask you to look up Network Chuck? It's the best resource I know is Network Chuck. Setting up my own AI server. He's got a great DIY channel. And I used him and my buddy used him. So um yeah. I can't look it up right now. Maybe if Ann could look it up and put it in chat, or I can, you can actually email me so that I can email you back. I think that's great. Or catch me on LinkedIn. And I'll just link you to that. Yeah, that's a great thing. You can use an old gaming box. That's even the best thing about that. You get an old gaming box and make sure there's a good NVIDIA chip. It doesn't even have to be that good, right? Oh, that's great. Don't worry about it. Someone I'll regulate. Um, and so you get that NVIDIA chip, you throw it in there. Maybe last generation. I don't know, what do I have in there? 3400, I think. 3040. I think that's what's in there. It's been so long. Um, and then you use Olama. I'll talk about that as well. It's one of your um, private implementations of Llama and other models, other open source models, and it works, man. It just works. I did graph rag on that for a job I was running for Ascendient. We had a job and I needed to build a graph rag. I did that on that server. Anyway, um, okay, so let's see. Great. Any other questions? Just stream them in. I love it. So here's PwC, and then there's a link to their description. And this is just their case study, basically talking about their investment and their savings. Um, the key takeaways, we have a slide on this, so I'm not gonna belabor it, but here's your reference. Okay. Um, Here's the media. This is so different from everything else. However, if you're like me and you have a small data science shop and you need to generate content, great idea. You don't need to hire a staff to do this anymore. Your staff is just paying Runway ML or somebody else to just pull reels and stuff. Yeah, we do. Santos. We provide that. So again, Anne is the best person to link you. We have all types of Gen AI trainings. So from very technical to managerial to application specific. Um, okay, so content creation. AI powered tool generate scripts, storyboards, visual concepts, reducing pre-production time to 60%, up to 60% while increasing creative output. Um, I would say again that this undersells it totally because if you're generating headless videos from Reels, you're saving a whole production team, and you have this the democratizing effect. Maybe it's not the same product you would have from a real production team, but you're going to get something that you can use. AI video editing and effects, reducing time to publish by 70%. I will say this, I've generated YouTube content, and sometimes when I feel nervous, I use a lot of ums and ahs, and I can just use Descript and it actually pulls all that stuff out and merges it together automatically. So I mean, that I've done that editing job by myself and it takes days. And Descript can do it in minutes. So again, incredible savings, and then real-time translation and localization of content across languages and cultures. Again, we've seen this on Netflix. If you want to have your titles in any language, very likely they don't have anybody writing those down. Um, okay, so let me click into here, and again, these links are on the end of this. I'll even put this in chat if you want, because it's so interesting to just poke around. Um, what do you want to create? So again, there's a chat box here, and you can see like what they've been able to make with this tool, right? These are all just reels. I don't even know if these are real people. I'm assuming they're not. Um, so I'm not deep into video production, but I would assume that with some work you can get some really nice products here. So very tempted to very tempted to describe an idea. It'll probably take time. Let me just throw it in there. There is what do we want? A bird. I want a condor flying over an Aztec temple. Something happens, and I wonder how it'll say that. It turns into a robot. Okay, so that's sort of appropriate. I wonder if it's going to give me an issue with the errors. If this takes a while, I'm just going to let it run in the background just for fun, right? See what happens. And nothing's happened. Maybe I have to sign up. I'm going to leave that, and if it works out, we'll come back and see. But you get the idea. All right. And then let's see, case study, enterprise productivity. Again, this is more of an advertising page, but Microsoft's got a lot of, Microsoft Copilot has a lot of tools. And again, what I would consider modest time-saving estimates, right? Workflow automation, Gen AI systems automate routine tasks like email management, meeting scheduling, document processing, saving employees 3 to 5 hours per week. Well, maybe for those. I would say one thing that would save me 3 to 5 hours per week easily is automatic transcriptions of meetings and point summarizations, and then emailing key points to key players, right? So that's just a lot of time. I'm in meetings all the time, and we use those agents with a button push, and it's just saving all that time that I used to spend last week, it seems, writing those notes by myself. Document processing, summarizing docs, writing Excel formulas, seamless user adoption, Microsoft 365. So this is part of their taking Excel and modernizing it, right? So it's no longer Excel, it's like some sort of Excel cyborg where it actually can, interpret Python and has an AI layer. So that's the modern Excel. Code generation, AI assistants that help developers write, debug, and optimize code. I would say this is really the best thing is that is Visual Studio Code. Great. And if you need more, you can always email me at my email. You'll see it at the end. It's Gunner at Austin Capital Data. But you can definitely email me or get me on Slack, or just talk to Ascendient directly, which is probably the best option. But all those options are open if you need more contact. Okay. Seamless integration strategy. So I see we're running into the end of the hour. If you have questions and you're on lunch, please put them in chat. I'll try and grab everything that's there. And I do want to go through this spiel about how to actually get this done. We have 90 minutes, but there's a question and answer. And again, I don't want to lose anybody. Okay. If you need to go, just throw your question in the chat and I'll get to it. Okay, so seamless integration strategy. So I've talked about how great this stuff is. I don't think you should go in without thinking hard, and really considering strategic considerations, because you very easily waste a lot of time and not get any benefit. That's actually the case where most cases are like that. You waste a lot of time, you don't get traction. So there's the API first approach. So it's sort of a tiered approach here, and we have a few of these slides. So leveraging standard APIs to connect to Gen AI capabilities with existing systems, enabling modular integration without disrupting core infrastructure. This over here, I'd even say is maybe even using commoditized tools first. You can get so much benefit, like what I was doing with Runway, and it's still not done anything yet, but but once it's all I had to do was type into their chat bot. OpenAI is the same way. They've got really good GUI tools. And again, I'm a programmer. I didn't like GUI tools. I want to use the command line, but my colleagues that just jumped in just totally outran me. And I got rid of that pretty quick. That idea that maybe I'll use the command line and do everything the hard way. Because you can go so much faster with the things that are built to use. So API first approach, maybe a GUI first approach, middleware solutions. Then you're going to adapt middleware, things like pieces of code like LangChain. You're going to want to adapt those into existing layers, right? So the idea is we don't disrupt our processes at all if we can help it. In this way, we can get more buy-in, we can get things running, we can show that things that people have done in the past, like what I've done taking notes in meetings, right? Um, uh, Thanks, Miles. I'm not going to log into Runway, but I appreciate that. So we have to modify our understanding. Sorry for doing that live. I've never done it before. So yeah. Okay. Um, so yes, basically a limited disruption. Use things for people who are use these tools in the most easy way possible for things people are already doing. You're going to get stunning benefits, and then you can think about middleware or adapter layers. When there's something that's not out there that you want. But again, be careful because it's very possible that if it's a basic thing that you want, it's going to be there tomorrow and it's going to be so much better. So that's really the biggest bugaboo here is there's how do you dive in and how do you keep your moat, right? How do you make something that's valuable for your, if you're going to invest? Cloud native integration, utilizing containerization and microservices to deploy Gen AI components alongside traditional systems. So once you use your middleware and you figure out, basically what can slot into existing systems, you're going to want to containerize it and productionalize it a little bit better using like Docker, and use things as a microservice. So that thing might be able to move around, be deployable, deconstruct it when you don't need it. So that's a little bit more and you might do this on the cloud. That's a little bit more investment. And then there's security and governance. So the thing that's also really difficult, and we've always got great examples in the news of people who mess this up, who have a lot of money and a lot of expertise, and then they just fall into some hole, right? And it always happens with governance, ethics, security. So um, that's hard, but it's got to be baked into your culture. Um, okay, so yeah, keeping an eye on the time. So this would be seamless integration, right? So you really want to be very strategic about not disrupting stuff and just giving people painkillers, right? That's the best of all worlds, and it's possible. So PwC has a lot of experience. Again, $1 billion in investment, and a lot of they're pretty open about how they've done this. Um, and um, So it's PricewaterhouseCooper, their AI rollout. They have five key components that they've lined up. And that's the layered approach. So each layer building on previous, exactly what I was saying, that you don't want to disrupt. You want to build on things that people are already doing, give them benefit. It's there for the taking. We're in a phase, like a frontier phase, where all the gain has to be gained, right? So so it's not like we have to really struggle. Take the low hanging fruit, and then don't get screwed up with security and governance. Um, Again, you've got to bring in your security and governance people and think about what we're doing so we don't build something that's going to cause harm to the organization or users. Um, and then scalable architecture for enterprise deployment. So thinking about the future. One thing that I'm going to take a I'm going to take a different path is, this is again a hard one, but when you're using your copilots, when you're using your GUIs, you're really buying into their system. And there's the danger of lock-in. Hasn't really happened yet because there's so many competitors, but you want to think about how things are going to scale in the future. Another strategic consideration. In the past, open source has been one of the solutions for that. So this is what they're going to advocate. But there are other ideas. Okay, so the 5 guidelines, they're right here. And again, I think this rhymes exactly with the rest of what I've said. Choose your use cases to enable rapid value and scale. Yeah, I mean, okay, I guess this is Anne and Santosh talking. Okay. Um, all right. So that's number one, advanced Gen AI and data at the same time. This goes along with governance. I mean, you want your Gen AI to work, but then you need to think about whether the data you're putting in is good, right? And this is actually, I really don't think that we're going to lose jobs from this because there's so much work that goes into this. It's not that we can put a bot in somebody's seat. It just doesn't work that way. Your workers are going to work harder and do a hell of a lot more. And that's what we see happening. It's the same as the old digital transformation story. Everybody thought when we had digital transformation, things would go digital, people would lose their jobs. It's the same story. You need more people to run the stuff, but it runs better when it finally works. Okay, so there's that. So again, we're rebuilding our data systems. We're building our data lakes. We've got our data architects. We're building in data checks and controls. There's a ton of work to be done to make this stuff sing. Upskill and reinvent how you work. Okay, so again, there is a phase, right? First, we're doing low hanging fruit, but there's a phase when we're going to have to change everything. And your people who are, who are doing jobs that may have gone away are going to need to learn new jobs because there's going to be a lot of need for the maintenance and production of these things. Accelerate AI initiatives with responsible AI. Again, there's nothing worse than for morale and for the company bottom line, and to get sued or to have a really bad PR case. If we're responsible or we can prove that we're being responsible, that goes a long way. And again, ethics comes back into play, right? I felt like for a while ethics was out of style. There's my commentary, but it doesn't seem like that's something that can last forever. And I'll say right now that it looks like it's back. Um, all right, future proof your AI with an open architecture. Um, so there's the last point. You got to think about, what am I buying into? Am I buying into a package that's like an Oracle package that that I can't ever get out of? And that's open architecture will allow that. So that's one way out of lock-in, vendor lock-in. Um, okay, so the rollout and adoption strategy. And I know, so we're past our hour. So if you guys have to go, you can always contact me, or contact Ascendient. That's the best way, about anything with any courses that you're interested in, any conversations that you're interested in having, or any references or pieces of this talk that you're interested in. Let me go and talk about the more technical parts. So, so here's the Gen AI maturity model, and there's a number of these models that I'll show you, just so you can sort of get an idea of pins to put in your workflow and try and make this happen. So the first stage is awareness or exploration, reading, training, basic tests. So maybe some discussions, maybe some uses of GUIs, right? I like to use GUIs um, to understand what's possible, and then I can code it up and I can make something that's mine, right? So there's that's the awareness. Pilot, scoped use case and prototype. How do you pilot this out? How are you going to build it? Scale. Obviously, once you build that out, you got to get it to users, or otherwise it's going to die in some corner. So there's the scaling and operational, and then strategic integration. Do you have your KPIs? Are you hitting your marks? Can you prove to management that you've actually built something that people are using and makes a difference? Um, all of that. So scope, data, model, and KPIs. So these are all things that are important. You want to identify your cases, clear ROI. All of this is basic management consulting, but it all makes an important impact on this because it's so easy to go wrong. Um, Curate your data. It's got to be high quality. You've got to know if it's high quality, right? You got to measure your data. Um, think about the architecture. This would be what kind of architecture we're going to deploy. We're going to fine tune it. We're going to use foundation models, meaning no fine tuning. Are we going to use something in between, like an adapter model that has a lightweight layer that changes behavior of the model slightly? There's all sorts of options. And then I would say, and I don't think people do this enough, but KPIs. You're going to have to argue to management at some point. Maybe you are management, right? You're going to have to know what's your indicator, and if it's good indicator, The first step is to get an indicator and then to assess the value. So here's your traditional, again, management consulting, right? Impact versus effort in Gen AI. And again, it's not as you would expect, right? Again, we have these high value things. There's a lot of effort, challenging, and a lot of impact. I would say that there is a lot more right here now, right? Low effort, all of them. Then companies that we're not paying, like OpenAI, are putting millions and billions of dollars into this, right? Billions of dollars into the domain anyway, to make it easy for us to do great things. So there we go. And I just broke these down into these sort of bins. High effort, custom solutions, probably stay away from that until you really know what you want and why it's going to work, because those things take a lot of time and there's a lot to be gained otherwise. Fine tuning, again, fine tuning sounds like a great idea until you start doing it. And a lot of the models that we use can get away with an adapter layer, or just the foundation works pretty well. Process transformation, transforming the whole system. And human in the loop is high effort, but it's something that um, I think has to happen, right? You need somebody curating this stuff. Okay. High impact, generative code bases, generated reports, and strategic planning. These are all things that you can get high impact with, and maybe not a lot of effort. Um, okay. And then these are all low effort and low impact. These commoditized solutions, automatic note taking, grammar correction, stuff that you just put something in and you get something back. That would be human out of the loop. That would be low effort and low impact. Some of these I think are really useful, but they're just already used, like grammar correction, right? Sort of, it's already there. Automatic note taking actually is kind of high impact, but low effort. So you can do with what you want here. Maybe you want to put those things in these boxes. Um, yeah, you guys can all reach out to me, including Anne. Or got it. Just looking at chat. Okay, so here's my use case, just to prove it to you. So I don't know how many of you are programmers, but I like Mermaid. I like diagramming things. I really like to see things in pictures. I could do this in Word. I mean, in Word or PowerPoint. I could do this in some commoditized solution like Mirio and get locked in. I don't like any of those ideas. I like Mermaid. Mermaid over here, if you want to see it, you can look at Mermaid Live. It's just mermaid.live. Um, it's Markdown, which is my favorite, and it'll go right into a Markdown document, and it's highly composable. But this is essentially my best mermaid document, right? My best mermaid graph of a Gen AI workflow. It's okay. It works. It shows what I need it to show, and sometimes I can get colors in there, but it takes a lot of reading. And I've actually spent a lot of time learning how to do just this. Um, I've always wanted to do more custom colors, custom icons. Um, but usually I'm doing this in the context of a talk like this, and I really don't have time to spend 2 hours figuring out how to change the color of these words or whatever it is, because it always involves troubleshooting. Well, this, I mean, you may or may not like my style selection, but that's what I was able to generate within a few minutes or seconds with a few prompts. Um, from this diagram, right? I didn't know how to resize just this one. That's hard. It's a CSS thing. You've got to figure out how to get it to tag this right. I've tried this many times. How to get it to make the font different sizes, where to find these icons. This would take hours. Now it takes minutes. So if you look at this is my without AI assist. That's about the best I could do with the time I have, and with AI assist with a lot less time. So this is the type of thing that I'm saying. It's fast, and it's the capacity that's expanded. You can see my code. This would be my normal code. This is the code with all the CSS tags, all the colors. I didn't have to look these colors up. I just said I want a lighter blue, I want it more steely, I want a robot. The robot's got to be big, right? So that's the benefit. Now I can take this and code it. Okay. Um, So, having said that, how do you measure that? right? Some traditional metrics, again, really important. Time to complete the task, errors versus a human baseline, so accuracy, time, accuracy, engagement increase. And this, I think, is actually the one that doesn't surface. This is my own. These are things that I looked up and they're just standard. This doesn't surface as much. Increased contributor capacity. Increased contributor capacity. I just couldn't get there. It's not that I couldn't understand how to code it. It's not that I don't know how to code that language. It's just I can't take the time on something sort of trivial, right? This is good enough in the old world. Now I can get my, gaudy diagram. All right. All right, so here's a less elaborate diagram. Feedback loop cycle. So we deploy, measure, learn, retrain, and scale. So again, some management consulting, a pipeline to get this to the endpoint. I didn't think those were there. Okay, whatever. Avoiding common pitfalls. So how do you avoid common pitfalls? Well, here's just a list of common things that I've seen that can come up. So resistance, right? Data concerns, address data concerns, talk about data, talk about measuring your data, put somebody in charge of understanding what the data is, making sure that the data comes, usually a data engineer or maybe a data scientist. Where is your data? When data comes in, how is it going to be parsed? Show time saving demos. Okay, so evangelization. Um, involve next non-tech users in pilots. So I'll say this, and I think I've seen a lot of companies do exactly this. Um, they they pull in a team of experts and coders for the AI initiative. That seems to make sense, right? Get your smartest people on it, or get your most technical people on it, and we'll have incredible results. That might be exactly the wrong decision in some cases that I've seen, just because they might build a very elaborate product that doesn't have a moat, that's hard to deploy, that's slow, right? These are problems. So it's often really important to involve non-tech users, not only because they'll be maybe using the thing, but maybe they can actually get productivity faster than a tech user, because of what they're doing with the technology. And so I would say that the relationship and the traditional logic is changing. We really want to upskill and fold in the people at all levels of your organization. Just I'll leave it at that. Um, and I'll make the suggestion that people who are non-technical might actually have bigger impacts, um, and be better use cases. Um, Data privacy and security, prompt filters, role-based access control, and secure data zones for sensitive prompts. So, basically thinking this stuff through, making sure that your prompts are appropriate, things that come out of your tools are appropriate. All those things have to be thought about. If you have people on the back end, really, you don't want to make things generally open. I think this is just important. Okay, best practices. Again, we'll emphasize start small. We're in the phase where we can get a lot of value from small things. Um, and I don't know when that's going to end. It seems like it's just starting. Identify high impact, low risk use cases, and then build human in the loop. This is actually key at this point. We don't have supervisors that are bots that are capable, right? The humans got to be in the loop, um, and and the humans got to think about what comes out. Okay. All right. Building momentum. So, well, skills development. This is one way you can basically have workshops and provide evangelization trainings. Really important. And again, that's our bread and butter. We see this all the time. Governance and ethics. Again, keeping this in mind is going to build momentum, and then feedback loops. So maybe these things work best in community, I'll say, um, because it's so easy to go off with a bot and just go off into the wilderness and do things very quickly. Check-ins, really super useful for keeping things going forward. Um, And then the common AI myths. AI is sentient. It doesn't think. It what it does is it makes a probabilistic output. It almost seems like it's doing something like a human, and maybe it is, but it's not sentient, whatever that is. Replaces all jobs. It doesn't seem to be doing that. When you see people using this, they're just working a lot faster. I will say it probably replaces the jobs that are not using AI. Maybe that's I don't know if I can say that out loud, but it seems like we're all going to be using AI soon, just like data science. It's going to become the fundamental literacy. That's, you know, I'm sticking my neck out with that one. I don't know if that's true, but it's plug and play. Well, it's not really plug and play. You do need supervisors. Then what does success look like? So, Santosh, are you asking a question or you're just saying, um, should I respond? I guess that's what I'm asking. Ah, yes. Okay. Thanks. So again, we want to really define success because it's so easy to just let this stuff run off. So what we need some KPIs. Maybe time saved is greater than 40%. I think that's reasonable. Accuracy gains plus 15%. Worker capacity. I would say again, this is the one that I think is going to hit. Does your worker produce more? You can compare people using AI versus not. That's a great controlled study, right? Um, perfect. Um, and then okay. Yeah, I think building, Gen AI applications is really useful. Definitely software as a service. There's so much room for these things. So yeah, um, definitely. And I mean, I'm talking about starting small, but if you have the capacity and the need and the um and the moat, like the defensible position, maybe a big company behind you, there's all sorts of things you could do. You could become one of these vendors, like you could produce a tool like um, Cursor, right? So, okay, cool. So AI uptake strategy, easy changes with big impact, human in the loop, and prioritize adoption. So I think these are the things that are going to make this actually work. And again, like some there's some discussions about whether you can use this to produce a product. Absolutely. This is not the path I'm talking about. That would be more downstream in this scheme. Okay, so integration. Step one, scope and KPIs. Again, just step two, data prep. Make sure your data in question are fit to purpose. Step three, model tuning. So you can build and tune your models. So this would be more of building an app. Step four, evaluation, deployment, and then finally results. So this would be a path to building something a little bit more in-house, a little more custom. Okay. How would you deploy AI locally? So again, we're moving beyond the GUI. We're into now we want to deploy some of these LLMs. We probably don't want to build our own LLM, but we want to build something that uses the LLM. So the local deployment options are Olama. This is the one that we would build into our personal server. Um, you can use Llama, Mistral, Vicuna, all sorts of open source R1 models. And there's also the really big benefit is of Olama actually does a lot of things in the background to reduce compute requirements. So you don't need that much compute to get really good results from a medium-sized model. You don't even need a big GPU. You don't even need a GPU with Olama. I can use it on my CPU. It doesn't work that fast, but so there's that. LM Studio is another option. Private GPU and server hosting. So this is sort of what I was talking about. You get full control, you get privacy, you can lock it down. And then other open source frameworks, you can do this the old way, right? Where you're using PyTorch, TensorFlow, Onyx. So this is how you would do this before all these foundation models came out. Or you could, basically use open source framework to build your own Gen AI tools. Okay. And the plethora of APIs. So you could also use APIs, right? Instead of using local. So AWS Bedrock offers foundation models as a service. Azure Open AI Studio, competing cloud platform, Google Vertex AI. All of these are sort of jungles of AI tools. So you can compose them very much like you would compose a virtual machine plus a database. Hugging Face is a little more open source. Um, you can get your models off of Hugging Face. So if you don't want to use these big ones and you want to use something a little more community with maybe a little more control, use Hugging Face. Then there's OpenAI AI API. That would be just their tool, right? And you can put this in your code, and many more: Anthropic, Claude, Cohere, and then LangChain, right? So there's many cloud options where they manage the system. Key considerations you might have are privacy, scalability, cost, ease of integration, and maintenance. Okay. And then there's the integration framework I showed you. So this is actually a basic architecture. We've got our data sources going into an embedding layer that's going to turn those data sources, let's say it's a document, into a series of embeddings, which would include context plus what's in the word plus the context all around it. That would be your transformer. And then maybe this goes into a vector store plus a Gen AI model. The vector store might be something that could store RAG information. So basically, if you have a file system with key documents for a lookup, you could build a vector store which will parse those into some sort of logical arrangement and store them for retrieval. So when somebody asks a question of the Gen AI model, it basically goes in and gets stuff from the vector store plus its internal logic, right? So here would be the prompt. You tune over here, so the prompt goes in, it reaches to the vector store. It uses that to understand, embedding and context, and it collaborates with all of the embeddings that are inside the Gen AI model and produces an output. That's just in a nutshell how this works. And again, each of these pieces are different entities that you would have to put together. Okay. Um, Modular AIs. I might skip some of this. Let's see. Well, I guess it's important. This is just breaking down all those pieces, right? So this would be the the APIs, right, for the LLM part. Maybe OpenAI, Anthropic, Cohere. These are RESTful endpoints for text generation. So basically, this is somewhere on the cloud, and you can use an API call to get a submit to this and get something back. We're all familiar with that. Maybe that streams, maybe you have to think about costs because there's tokens involved and payment. But it's easy to integrate that. It's relatively cheap because you don't have to maintain it and compute. You just ask for what you use. You just pay for what you use. Um, Middleware solutions. So these are when you're building this out a little bit more, LangChain, Llama Index, and RAG frameworks. So these things are like RAG frameworks, for example. Llama Index and LangChain are bigger than that, but the RAG frameworks are inside these. They allow us to pull together document stores so that you can store information and enrich your queries, right? That would be the vector store right there. Um, Llama Index and LangChain both have different types of vector stores. You can think about graph vector stores, keyword vector stores, um, vectorized vectorized text vector stores. So all different architectures. They also offer orchestration tools, um, memory tools. So you could make another database that remembers what's been called, what's been said. Tool integration and function calling, workflow automation and chaining. They offer, syntaxes and ability to abstract. There's all sorts of things inside these that allow you to build your system even more. Um, Then there's the prompt engineering layer. So this is, if you go back over here, prompt tuning. So one way to get performance is to change what you put in, your tuning, just the questions you ask. You can use few shot learning, meaning you give it some examples of what you want and get back. You could tell it to do chain of thought reasoning, context window optimization, and output formatting and validation. So these are all strategies for tuning what you put in to see what you get, to change what you get out. And again, this is all pretty big. I'm giving a high view of this. Then these are more other vector databases. Again, this has to do with the database you want to use to inject information into your queries. And then governance considerations, and you can read them, but a lot of this is, access control, how long things remain. Again, this is, large modules and courses about this stuff. Okay, let's just talk for the next 5 minutes. What use case is your top priority? Anybody want to throw in chat? I love to see. So there's some suggestions: document summarization, chatbots, automation, training support, or other. Anybody have a use case that they're interested in? Maybe you have something cool you want to share with everybody. Automation. That's a good one. That's a little bit downstream automation, I think. But and it requires, I think it requires autonomous agents. So you could perhaps have a flag system, but you probably want the thing to run by itself, whatever your automation is. Maybe you run a plant and you want your plant to flag potential failures, right, before they fail, and then call a human in. So this automation is great. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? And I mean, you don't have to. Uh, I'm just interested in polling, sort of like what's in the room, who's in the room, you know. Chatbot. Yeah, chatbot seems pretty useful. I think, we're calling them co-pilots now. But chatbots are super useful. For I think one thing that's really useful with a chatbot is the if you have a documentation system. One of my colleagues, he's really good at tooling with AI. Um, he's also a DJ, but a data scientist as well. And he came to Austin. I'm in Austin now, to visit. And whenever he's in town, he always gets a gig, right? So what he did was I don't know, he found a turntable, or he found out what turntable the gig had. He didn't have a turntable with him, and he didn't know how to use it. So we built a chatbot like in a few hours, because he didn't want to read the 400-page manual. So he put the 400-page manual into a vector database and asked it questions, and was able to learn, overnight how to use this turntable, and then perform. Chatbots are great, right? I think you might be part of a company that has a base of documentation that you want to access. Yeah. Anything else? All right. Well, you can keep throwing those in. We only have a few more minutes. If you have any questions, I'll be here. Um, I'll field anything you want. You don't have to have a use case. If you have any questions, feel free.
Thank you, Gunnar, so much. Yeah, we can hang out for a bit, see if any other questions come in. No, that was really informative and engaging. Thank you. The only thing that's better than 90 minutes with Gunnar Kleeman is 2-week Gen AI program with Gunnar. Or any customized class for a day or two, because then that way you can get hands-on, get in the weeds, ask questions in a smaller group. We can customize the class. Do you mind if I just share my screen real quick, Gunnar,
Sure.
while we're seeing if things come in? Okay, thank you. Just wanted to come up here and just see if you can see my Ascendient Learning screen. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So I'm just going to go here to training and certifications and down to generative AI. So Gunnar was talking about some of the foundations, some things that you can learn. We've got our Gen AI training page here. We're going to give you all this in an email too, so don't worry about writing anything down. I'll also throw it in the chat. But we've got, I think, maybe a good place to go from here might be Introduction to Generative AI Concepts. It's a pretty much of a beginner course, but you do get some hands-on training. If you're just one individual, you can also sign up for our upcoming course dates. A couple other things that Gunnar had mentioned, Copilot, GitHub Copilot, if you want something that's, an AI app that's already built into something that you're already using, that could be great. Building your own generative AI applications could work. Prompt engineering, this is a huge one too. Because if you're not prompting right, you're not going to get the right output, right? So this is a really good hands-on course for prompting. We also have upcoming course dates or can customize. Really, any of these can be customized. And then you can go down and just see, like, if your role, are you a data scientist? Are you a manager? Obviously, contact us for any kind of customization or any questions. So I will stop my share for now. And I'll just go back to see in the chat. All right, there was a lot of questions and participation. That was really great. We love that. Really appreciate that. Great. Okay. Well, all right. I've got 1:30 p.m. So, anything else? Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. No, great job, Gunnar. Thank you so much. I always love doing webinars with you. Gunnar and I did a webinar it was 2 years ago, but it seems like just yesterday.
Yeah, I think it was data engineering, which is it's like the beginning, right? It's like the very beginning of time. I mean, it's
Yeah, I
coming back.
know.
Everybody wants data engineering now because you got to get your data right. But it's different from this.
Yeah. Oh, and you were absolutely right about ethical AI coming back. That is one of the things we get asked about most often for these customized private programs. How can we weave in this ethical AI, data governance, and AI literacy? Big deal right now too. So thank you for speaking to that. And I know you can weave that into your classes too.
Yeah, it's one of those evergreen topics, right? It never goes away. It comes and goes, but it always comes back. It's like ethics just makes sense, I guess.
Yep. Yep. Especially now. And human in the loop. Yep. I'm
Yeah,
totally on board with everything that you said. Thank you so much.
fantastic.
Okay, everybody, I suppose we're 1 minute over, so we'll turn you back over. But thanks for everyone for staying with us till the end. We really appreciate your time. We know you've got other things to do, but this was amazing. Gunnar, thank you so much again. And hopefully we'll see you soon in a class or another webinar.
Okay, fantastic.
All
Thanks.
right. Bye, everybody.